Welcome out there. My name is Laolu Akonde and you are on to Inside Sources. First, here is my take for the week. It's entitled The Challenge of Corrosive Corruption. When we as a people try to rise above rampant corruption, it is because corruption is corrosive. Corruption distorts. Corruption makes societal progress an Herculean task and several other damages. But the more dangerous thing is not that people can be corrupt, because there is corruption everywhere on the face of the earth. The more dangerous thing is the lack of consequences, the impunity, which is a fatal dose for the destruction of any people, society, or nation. Impunity is when we see blatant corruption or what looks like it, and we let it pass over and over again. What we are doing then, when we repeatedly tolerate impunity, is that we are settling as a people for a life of shame, deprivation, and despair, especially for the critical mass of our people. Corruption feeds poverty, and poverty feeds insecurity. And poverty and insecurity are the two major problems of our nation, at least today. So this is why all Nigerians of goodwill, regardless of party or political affiliations, regardless of religious or ethnic differences, ought not to keep silent regarding the advocacy against corruption and impunity in our country. We have to speak up. Silence in this matter could easily mean to be complicit. Case in point is what is happening now in Kano State, where the state government is alleging and preferring charges of bribery and corruption against its immediate past governor, who is also the chairman of the APC. It turns out that unlike many other Nigerian politicians, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje is actually a stand-up guy, well-bred grassroots politician who knows his onion. If Ganduje were to give you his word, you can go to sleep. I can say that because I know that. However, truth is that there is a hanging perception of corruption around Ganduje, and it is not going to go away if he and the people around him, his political associates and the people who have authority over him, don't encourage him to confront and deal with the perception. It is a shameful perception that will not go away if he does not frontally and robustly deal with it, especially now that he has another opportunity. A video went viral in 2019, and now, additionally, a state government is preferring charges of corruption against him. Now, anyone trying to deny what was revealed in that video in 2019 is abiding in self-deceit and makes no good. Even Ganduje's friends can't deny that. The perception created in the video is a weight that we continue to drag along on the neck of Dr. Ganduje if he does not deal with what is clearly a problem for him and for us as a society. Ganduje ought to take this opportunity now to clear his name before Nigerians and the world. Nigerians should care less whether he remains APC chairman or not. But let no one in government or anyone that has power try to tilt the scales of justice either in favor or against him. Let those who can talk to Dr. Umar Abdullahi Ganduje encourage him to transparently go and sort himself out in the courts of justice and courts of public opinion, so that all of us as a people don't become messed up by the corrosion of corruption. If after the case is found blameless, then he would have freed himself from the shackles under which his conscience is currently tied now. And I dare say the conscience of the nation. Nigeria and Nigerians deserve way better if and when there is an established case of corruption against anyone who is entrusted with power or any form of leadership in any sector, or anyone anywhere for that matter. Such deserves to attract appropriate consequences. And I must say that the Tinubu administration has started very well, suspending Betta Edu and putting people like Godwin Emefiele to trial on issues of corruption. Ganduje should cooperate, therefore, with the Kano State government to ensure the same. Let this impunity stop, for God's sake. And Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back. As we continue the conversation on the future of Nigeria, today I have an eminent voice that is pushing for that great Nigeria. I'm delighted today to welcome my brother and friend, Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo, who is the spokesperson for the presidential candidate of LP, Mr. Peter Obi, and who is also a lawyer and a social commentator. Ken, you're welcome to Inside Sources.
It's my pleasure seeing you again, Loud.
Good to see you again.
Thank you, viewers, for joining in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So let's start, on the normal general note that if you look at where Nigeria is today, right now, will you say that the country is on that trajectory to the great Nigeria that we all know is possible?
I've always said that Nigeria has the potential to be a superpower nation. And it will not take more than 2 decades if we do what is right and consistently do what is right to move into that superpower status. Superpower status stands on a tripod: political stability, economic viability, and a strong military force. I've researched on this for a long time. Nigeria has the potential, but unfortunately, we have not kinetized this potentiality. And unfortunately, the more, this regime has been the worst epistle to that movement. And don't take my words for it.
Right.
Take the words of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. You know what they said?
Right.
They said 40% of the manufacturing plants are going to go down. There is no government in history that has flip-flopped on policies like this government. From day one, fuel subsidy is gone. And then, in addition to it, we have a CBN who I do not understand whether they understand what they are doing. And I'm going to give you elementary facts.
Okay.
Because when you talk about the flip-flop, the worst case where it affects the manufacturing is in the forex management. The success of forex management is in its ability to ensure stability and sustainability, not whether it is high or low. The greatest threat to the economy is uncertainty. So the duty of the central bank is to ensure macroeconomic stability. But this government has foisted on the economy macroeconomic volatility. Now again, this government incompetently now started dividing Nigerians into communities, saying people on band A will now have to pay higher. Not that they are paying higher. No, they will not have to be punished for having more light. Because ordinarily, when you consume 80% and the other person is consuming 20%, ordinarily you pay higher, even if you're paying something.
Right.
So the question is not that they are paying higher. The question is that they are going to be punished for having more light, not by their own decision, by your own incompetent infrastructure decision. Do you know that this is against the law? It's illegal and unconstitutional. Section 42 is very clear. A citizen of Nigeria, of a particular community, cannot be subjected to any limitation or disability in the application of any law or administrative or executive decision to which a citizen of another community is not subjected to. So dividing Nigerians into this is community of, is it people that have light or the rich people or what? Does it mean this government does not know that everybody living in a rich neighborhood is not rich? Is it that they are not aware of it? Because some people are living in the boys' quarter of some rich people's house, and their own meter is different.
Yeah, well, they must now pay.
You must now punish them because they are now living within that community, which is illegal and unconstitutional.
Yeah. Well,
so,
you know,
this is terrible.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
I mean, clearly, do you think Nigerians are aware as a people of their capacity to change the direction of this country if they think it is not in the right direction?
Having been an active participant to 2023, I would want to say that Nigerian people are beginning to be aware that power belongs to the people. But you see, they were deceived. They were beguiled. And not just even by the dissidents or the, corrupt class,
right,
but by what I will call that evolutionary trend. Because there has to be a precedent that you would have to rely on to take a decision.
Yeah.
What happened in 2023 was novel. This was the first time Nigerians came out and say, don't give us money. We're no longer interested. We want a new Nigeria. They identified the criteria for their new Nigeria. They saw a man that fit into it and said, this is the man we are going to follow. It has never happened before. And have you noticed that even after the election, they are not changing their mind? Before now, after the election, bandwagon effect, people will go and start looking for money or start looking for this and that.
So-called winner takes all.
Good. But now they are maintaining their stand. This is where they were beguiled. Calm down. Because some people had the feeling they may get justice from the system. They may get justice from the courts. Like what happened in Senegal. It was not just the people. The institutions helped.
Yeah.
The Constitutional Court came in and gave a judgment. So the people cannot do it alone. The only way the people can do it alone is that revolution, which may go out of hand.
Yeah.
Which may be bloody.
It often goes out of hand.
Good. And which this government and the corrupt class is pushing the people involuntarily towards that direction. Because certainly if you make peaceful change, good. So now we had a failure of the system. The courts did not do what they ought to do, in my own opinion. Because you can't go to the Court of Appeal, for instance, to ask for orders to inspect an evidence that is inevitable for your success in court. And the Court of Appeal gave the 3 orders, and the agency disobeyed all of them. Yet the Court of Appeal gave them audience to come and ask for an order to vary that order without obeying it. You know what the court, you know what the judicial precedent is? Anytime anybody is in contempt of a court order, he does not have the right of audience before the court.
That's the normal.
That is the precedent the Supreme Court has established. You have to first and foremost obey the court order
before it can be varied.
You can't go to equity with dirty hands. You can't be asking for an order when there is a subsisting order you have not obeyed. I could go on and on. I don't know how they came out to make a ruling and then a judgment that a creature of the law has discretion to do what the law says you must do. Discretion is the exact antidote to rule of law.
Are you speaking of INEC?
The court said INEC has discretion to transmit or not to transmit. And I'm surprised they ruled it as a judgment.
But is that not what the act says? Just asking, you're a lawyer, I'm not.
Anywhere you see the word discretion in the act, then know that I am not telling you the truth. How can the way the courts did... Now, anytime you see the word may, is optional, it's discretionary.
Right.
Anytime you see the word shall, is mandatory. INEC even made a rule to say they shall.
Yeah, of course. And I have spoken about that myself, that INEC puts itself.
Good.
How? Yeah.
Now, and then the court is saying, no, you have discretion. Now, the danger in discretion is that it's uncertain and it is crooked. Not by my word. Sir Edward Coke, he said, rule of law is a golden net wand, and discretion is uncertain and crooked. So anytime you put discretion to an agency, you will make the law uncertain and make them crooked. Look at what happened in off-cycle election. We graduated from not transmitting to now pre-filling results, because the politicians now are capitalizing on the judgment of the court that is discretionary. So if you now say, no, there is, look at IRF, this and that, the INEC will say, where is your manual result? It's discretionary.
Yeah, anyway, no, so
what I was trying to say is that the people we are beguiled. They thought that there is a level institutions cannot go below. So they were failed. And by that time, it was late. Because whatever you would do can only be very effective before the swearing in of the person. Meaning, one of the recommendations I am going to make here is that all legal procedures must end before an incumbent is sworn into office. Otherwise, you are laying the foundation for foisting a fait accompli on people if there is an institutional failure like it happened. That was why I said Nigerians have made up their mind for a new Nigeria. But certain things they did not anticipate, certain trusts they put their mind in, made them not to take that kind of radical decision which they ought to have taken if they knew beforehand. That is why if the National Assembly does not bring about genuine amendments to take care of these things, Nigerians must take their destiny in their hands and ensure that they enforce their will. It is within them to do that.
Yeah, and I think that not only do I agree with your point that it's important to settle all electoral cases before people get into office. I agree with that. But I also wanted to add that I think Nigerians have the capacity to make the National Assembly do what they want.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the areas that I'm trying to explore and see what else we need to do in terms of mobilizing the people, preparing them, letting them know that they have that option. Because really, when the Nigerian people are fully, even not fully, fairly mobilized, the political elites will get the message that they don't have a choice.
Time is up.
Now, so my next,
Now, let me comment.
Right.
Because of the experience I've had now in the system, if you watch me, you see that I am laboring hard to attack lack of internal democracy in political parties.
That's another important point.
That is the beginning. That the National Assembly, they are not doing what they are doing is because the political parties are comatose. If your constituency is not putting fire on you, you wouldn't move. The constituency of every politician is his political party. If Nigerians, and I'm saying it clearly, any party that does not have internal democracy amongst them, Nigerians should not vote for that party. You can't give what you don't have.
True.
No party can entrench democracy on the national if they don't have it internal.
Yeah.
That was why we've not had democracy flourishing in Nigeria. From the PDP to the APCC, the caricature that is going on. If you want to, a national chairman that you know, that has all this baggage, you knew it. It's not as if he became a national chairman and had the baggage. There is no party that has genuine internal democracy that can trump up such a man as chairman. It's not possible. Because the forces of internal democracy will bring him down. Because when you allow fair contest, it is your opponent that will bring out the reasons why this man cannot be trusted with power.
And then a fair
atmosphere of contest will resolve it. So when you reconcile that internal democracy within political parties, they will be trumping up the best. Remember, we don't have independent candidates.
No.
So whatever the political parties now bring out, it becomes a fait accompli.
But
if Peter Obi had not gone to another party now, we would have been left with these old men that no longer think for themselves, but others think for them.
But let me ask you this question, just by the way, and I'm sorry for interjecting, but I'd like to get your take. It's something that is out there. It's something that is out there. It said that...
I just hope it's not my answer that is bringing that one.
It's fine. We always come around.
Yeah.
So there's the view that if Peter Obi and LP were not front runners in the 2023 election, the outcome would have been different, because when you had the votes of Peter Obi and Atiku together, they defeat the Ukrainian president. What do you say about that? Briefly, and then...
Yes, what you would have said is, if Atiku and PDP had done the right thing, we wouldn't have been talking about APC. It would have been history. But exactly what I told you, Obi did not want to continue with the old formula of not having internal democracy within a political party and pretending you can do it within Nigeria. PDP, in your own constitution, said you are committed to power shift and power rotation. Section 73C, your own constitution, which should be the ground norm in your party.
Yeah.
And then the presidential candidates from the north came out to say, of a truth, Atiku Abubakar himself said it, of a truth, it is the turn of the southeast. Bet. What do you mean by bet? When you yourself said the same thing, when Jonathan wanted to go the second time, he said no. And they said your only reason is not because you said it's corrupt, it's not because you said it's because it is the turn of the north.
Right.
So now that you yourself said it is the turn of the southeast, then it's a region that has been loyal to you all through their lives. Then you now say, no, they are not qualifying. So why am I saying this? What I'm saying is that if there was internal democracy in the party,
in PDP, that wouldn't have happened.
They would have said, no, this is the position of the law.
Let's now come to finish the point.
Yes, so the point is that Obi did the right thing. As a matter of fact, he now helped PDP to obey their constitution. Yes,
they didn't obey it,
and that's why they failed.
Yeah. Anyway, let's
and they're still failing.
Yeah,
they're not even able to reconcile.
Well, I mean,
the leadership of their party.
Yeah, I think that if you look at, now that we're talking about internal democracy, if you look at the three major parties, even your party, LP, still had a problem with Abure.
Absolutely, and that's why we are battling.
Yeah, PDP has a problem with their chairman.
Absolutely.
APC now has a problem. So there is something.
Has always had a problem.
So there's something.
From 2016, I don't talk without facts.
Right.
From 2018 till date, APC had more than or about 5 national chairmen. I will name them so that you don't say.
Is it up to 5? Let's start.
John Odigie.
Yeah, that was in 2018.
Adams Oshomo.
And then Adams. Yeah.
Bunu.
Oh, well, okay, if you can't Bunu.
No, why won't you? It cannot exist in any.
So you're right. So it's 5.
Adamu.
Oh,
then
think of it. That's quite an embarrassment.
Good. What's average? Is it average up to 3 years?
Wow.
So a ruling party that is showing such
in the same time,
an incredibly. Let me tell you, this government is competing with itself. If you check the trajectory of this government, you can only compare its failure with its abject failure. Can you imagine? We are saying that CBN is doing well. Not because they have even returned Naira to what they met. But at least they are going from their 2,000 to a naira to 1,300 to. So you are comparing their failure with their abject failure.
And that point is made. Let me ask you, and these are interesting points that you're actually bringing up in your discussion. So do you think, again, it's out there. Quite a few people think that APC got a second chance in 2023, whatever it is.
Yes, you know that I think that you did not.
Exactly. Yes, got a second chance.
And I'm suspecting you. No. When you're saying, as an actor, I cannot admit, whatever it is,
No, well, I'm just saying, but it's there. But
because it is real.
And that's the point. The view is there.
I'm not trying to cut you in.
Okay.
If you have seen polling unit by polling unit result from INEC as to that presidential election, in all the polling units as required by law, Section 62 of the Electoral Act, tell me. Because what INEC gave to us, which we took to court, 18,018 polling units were blurred, mutilated, unreadable. Some having pictures of men and women. So if you have seen, let me know. Because in mathematics, when you arrive at an answer without a formula, they will say you stole it. And then by 4:30 a.m., a commission went in and announced the result.
Okay. Anyway, so let's come back to our discussion. And I wanted to put a question to you before we conclude. Now, I think that Nigeria's, the abject poverty that is going on in our country, worsened by the removal of subsidy and some of the policies. And by the way, I think subsidy has to be removed. And I'm sure, even Mr. Peter yourself, that ought to be removed.
Good.
I'm saying that in terms of,
including me.
Yeah, we all think so. But my point is that, so it has worsened the problem of poverty.
Yes.
I am afraid that this problem of poverty and the hardship in the land is coming close to a situation where people will just look at how you are dressed, and then they say you are part of them. See, some of the arguments that we even have at the level of political elite, it's not impacting on them. I mean, they won't see, two elites and say, okay, well, that one is APC, that one is LP, that one is PDP. It is getting to the point where people might begin to say, is one of them because he drives a car or he looks good. So my question is, what will it take the political elite of Nigeria to avert what is clearly a danger to their own existence with the kind of hardship and the almost intolerable poverty that is festering in the country? What's your take, Ken?
Just take them, the three things we have been shouting on. Character, competence, capacity. Compassion, you drive it further. Then creativity, commitment, consistency. Then if you drive it further, dedication, determination, and discipline. These things are there. They are easy. Why? All this inordinate acquisition of wealth that makes no meaning for you, but will save the life of another. Why are you acquiring those things? Money is what money can buy. As long as you have money, which you can use to buy nothing, it is useless for life. You know one thing, like I said, lack of knowledge. See, my people perish for lack of knowledge. The next thing the government should do is to proactively support Nigerian companies vis-a-vis the international companies who are naturally conspiring to ensure that the potentials of Nigerians are not brought to bear. Look at what happened in EPIS. So when they are telling you the foreign companies are giving you excuse because of Naira, this and that, they can't do this, it's not true.
Okay.
But when you allow them to enjoy the monopoly,
Yeah.
then your people cannot come in to salvage the situation. They don't owe you patriotism. They owe their country. So if the government, through diplomacy, will ensure that Nigerian companies compete on international sphere, we will be able to at least get our own share of the world economy.
Okay, Ken, well made. Last question, because of our time. It's a very simple question. So a lot of the damage that we have seen done to national life and development in our country has only been possible because of what is called elite collusion.
Absolutely.
When we were under military rule, people knew that military rule is an aberration.
Yes.
But when a soldier takes over power, he's able to get some elites to be ministers, to be his heads. They get business going. We all know that Nigeria ought to be great. We discuss, some of the ideas that ought to be in place. And then at times we see people doing the opposite. But you find that they find one elite or some elites that will work with them.
Yes.
How can we end elite collusion? Do you subscribe to the idea of an elite consensus where everybody, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of ethnicity, religion, where we can say that this is the minimum, regardless of whatever that this country should be able to do, this. Do you, and with Mr. Obi, support that kind of consensus so that we can terminate elite collusion in this country?
You see, another name for what you have just said is elite capture of the state. So you're absolutely correct. That is one of the things that Obi is saying. As a matter of fact, he calls it structure of criminality. That's what he said. This structure must be dismantled. It is pure collusion. You can see, even when this government came to power, you can see some people who said, even if they are given 30 years, they will not do anything. And before a week or two, they're already telling you that they are the best thing that is happening. That is part of that collusion you're talking about. There should be an irreducible minimum, and I agree. But that can only be possible if you have internal democracy in political parties. Because whoever the political party trump up to you, you don't have any choice.
But I think it goes beyond political parties, because
I want you
to think of other leaders now outside of politics. We have leaders in business. We have leaders in religion.
Good.
We have leaders in academic.
Yes.
Who also have a voice.
The problem is that,
and who are often silent.
No, you wouldn't blame them. They didn't tell you they are politicians.
But can we leave politics to politicians?
If you don't leave politics to politicians, then do you leave biology to
but politics is
to physicians?
Well, now, you don't really, because
what I'm saying,
we are all affected.
Good. What I'm saying is this: no matter how much you shout, Nigerians are shouting. That's why even in heaven, they will ask who will go for us. So my advice is that they all should not look at themselves as not being politicians. In democracy, everybody should be in politics.
That's the point. That's my point.
Everybody should be in politics.
Some people just have strong voices.
Good.
That when they speak, people listen.
Must be in politics. That's democracy. The government of the people, by the people, for the people. So everybody should be in politics. But not everybody should be in power, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
But everybody should be in politics. But you can only blame them if you brought out qualified people and then you're saying they made a wrong choice. But even if they make the right choice and their votes don't count, that is why. Good. Now, let me come in to narrow in on that issue of the people.
Okay, then let's conclude.
The people must know one thing. The only democracy that can endure is the one that is brought by them. They should never trust military intervention to give them democracy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a summary of it. Why I am scared of military intervention. When the military come in, they suspend parts of the constitution. They rule by decree. And they suspend the courts. they out the jurisdiction of the court.
And
they establish tribunals. And when they make a decree, their tribunal will try the people. And you will not have a right to appeal in the regular court. They will tell you appeal to the Provisional Ruling Council. And the Provisional Ruling Council takes the final order. And in these three you have just done, only one man is the head of all of them. And a decree is simply the words and the orders of the head of state put in writing. So it's the most dangerous thing on earth. You don't have freedom at all. So the military coming in, they don't have democracy themselves. So they will never give you democracy.
They are command and control.
So the people must know that we have reached the end of the tunnel. Military intervention is not going to be the solution. Absolutely. They must rise up.
Absolutely.
And fulfill their dream of a new Nigeria by taking over this country, occupying it democratically. They can do it.
This is a conversation that we have to continue. And I agree with you entirely, and I must say that we stand strongly and robustly against military intervention. We want the Nigerian people themselves to insist upon the political elite to do what is right.
That is what will endure.
We are here, to ensure that happens, properly, decently, without trouble. That's why we will not give up. This is our country. We have nowhere else to go. And we want other Nigerians to be aware of the potency of their power to make things happen. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back. Now I have with me virtually Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi, a UK-based commentator on Nigeria and global issues. Mr. Kayode, you are welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you. Thanks, Lalo. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Thank you. So the way I normally start the conversation is to say, if you look at where Nigeria is today, right now, do you think that the country is on the right direction that will lead us to the great Nigeria that many of us envisage?
The honest answer is no. But the right question is the wrong question. The right question is to acknowledge the reality, which is Nigeria is like a car that has crashed in the rough patch of the road, and the task is how to get it out of that rough ditch and put it on the road. So it's until it gets on the road that you can put it on the right
direction.
I
like that. That's a new one. So you believe that the way things are, it's like there has been some kind of an accident and the vehicle itself is crashed. So using that analogy, what else or what next do you think has to happen?
There must be a radical acknowledgement of the fundamental indices that would make it impossible for any Nigerian leader to move Nigeria forward. And that acknowledgement is on the structure of the country, the expensive nature of its democracy, the poor, the lack of enforcement of law that is impossible to enforce, where both leaders and followers are alike in behavior towards the country, where you have majority leaders bad, majority followers bad, the country can't move forward. So we need to together, both as leaders, as followers, agree that there's a need for a fundamental change. Let me highlight the national questions. The national question, in the absence of a buoyant economy, people start talking about their primordial Yoruba, Igbo, Ingala, marginalization. When the economy is robust, people don't talk about those primordial sentiments. So that's an indication that there's something fundamentally wrong with the structure of our country. And leadership, successive leadership have failed to acknowledge that until we fix that fundamental, then it's impossible. Even if any leader with the best intention, it is impossible to move the country forward, because any radical policy you make can be misinterpreted, politicized, and it will hit the brick wall. Is it security actions, misinterpreted, politicized, religious interpretations are read into it? So we need to get that vehicle out of the ditch first.
Interesting. So your point seems to be that you believe that we need to restructure the country. Now, if that is the if that's the point you're trying to make, can you just give a little bit detail on how that structure, what should be in the new structure?
So successive government have made some short-term effort, to devolve power, to the subnationals, like the state government. The question is, do we have a local government? Local government is completely eradicated. So people talk about restructuring from federal to state. We know that the local government is the closest to the people. Even issues as community policing, the police knowing members of the community, providing basic needs that affect the common people, where there's how many state governors or how many states have been able to conduct elections. Most of them appoint caretaker head of local government. So they thought that tier of government has completely disappeared in our national politics.
Even just to enrich your point, even when the elections are held, we see that the ruling party always wins,
absolutely.
Win, many times completely everything available.
Yeah. So if that vital organ that is closest to the people has been commandeered into the personal property of whoever is the governor of the state. So for example, my local government is Alimosho. My local government chairman is not answerable to the people there, because he's answerable to the state governor just across the country. I just use that as an example. So we need to go back before we even talk about this issue of restructuring in the point of regional government, taking some from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. Where we have now, even this federating unit that we have now, there is a part of the most important aspect of governance has disappeared. So everybody's running into Abuja. The president decides who gets a borehole in the local government. Those kind of conversations, we need to start seriously addressing that. And then after I talked about how expensive our democracy is, we spend so much money servicing elected officials, at the expense of the people. We need to get to the point where we make political appointments, elective positions attractive only to the best in our society. So something almost like a part-time job, basically. So if you're going there to serve. There are no expectations that you would go and borrow ₦1 billion from a bank to run as a member of House of Representatives, because that once you become a member of House of Representatives, there are opportunities to get 10 times that amount to pay back the money. There's also, people talk about corruption, but we focus on corruption based on elected officials. We don't talk about the role of the banks. We don't talk about the role of the custom officer at the border area. So as a people, we need to first decide we want to get this country out of the ditch that we are now. Otherwise, whatever reforms you make, whatever efforts you make, it's going to just be like, when you have a wound and all you're doing is just putting plaster on it without applying the necessary medication that would let the wound to heal. And then that issue of a sense of belonging for every Nigerian to be part of Nigeria. So we must address those, have those conversations, honest conversations, and quality decisions needs to be made. And brave decisions really need to be arrived at by leadership at all levels, because right now everybody just talk about Jonathan, Buhari, Tinubu, state governors, people are not holding them to account. They collect revenues from the federal government. People no longer hold them to account. There's a focus on Abuja, and that is why we need to actually have a rethink on the structure of the country.
Thank you very much. Quite interesting that these are some of the recurrent points that have come up even in this conversation, especially the place of local government. And some of the pushback that we get from some of the governors is that in the federation, it's the subnationals that are the federating units, and it doesn't include local government, and so you see quite a bit of resistance from the governors, even when the federal government is trying to say, let's have local government autonomy. Let the resources, the funding for local government, let it go into a different account where states are even supposed to contribute. But what you have today, essentially, in many of the states, is that the state governors control. They are completely in control of local government, to the extent, like you said, that the chairman doesn't even have a lot of initiative. My question to you then is that, so what do we need to do about these governors? Do we need to change our laws? How do we get the governors to let the local government breathe? Keo?
Yeah, well, the sad news is that we cannot. The good news is that if they recognize that the current system we are running is going to lead to a complete collapse of the country and, also threaten their own existence, then they will be part of that solution. Like you talk about that fight back. The fight back is because they don't even recognize how the current system work against their own interest in terms of just survival, as individuals. They're not going to be governors for 8 years. But when you step down, that's why you see a lot of people step down from office, and then it suddenly becomes obvious that there's a solution. So they first need to recognize that they are stakeholders, so even if it's a sense of, without getting personal, the current government as the most members of the political class that have championed about restructuring. The current president, not only champion restructuring, demonstrated, the need for restructuring.
It was in the trenches with people like you and myself.
Through federalism. And when he became governor, he challenged the federal government on the local government reforms, and it was successful up to the Supreme Court. So now that we have someone there who sort of, technically, historically believed in that, he can use his political leadership to have a buy-in.
Interesting. So let's move to political reforms. Do you think that the incumbent president should work on bringing, one, a new constitution, and two, try to see how we can further improve our electoral laws?
I think the most important one will be the electoral law. It needs to be fair. From 1999 till date, we've made improvements in our electoral laws. The introduction of partial electronic voting, like beavers and what have you. But we need to increase the speed, because where you'd get it right is electing the right leaders into office and making the election less expensive for people. So I think, irrespective of the controversies towards how this current president emerged, he will do himself a lot of good by expediting those electoral reforms. And I think there are acts that are pending in the National Assembly that can be looked into, and we should learn from every mistake in all our elections. So I think that's priority. In terms of political reforms, I would expect that would be the number one priority of this administration. Let me put it this way, Laolu. The last government, our expectations was that anti-corruption was going to be the key element. You know, in fact, when some of us were campaigning for Buhari, we were saying that once Buhari comes in, corrupt people will take their flight voluntarily and run out of Nigeria. But obviously, from everything that is coming out, the opposite is the case. You know, as a matter of fact, it is in areas where I did not give the government credit that they made a lot of achievement, which is infrastructure. You know, do you want to talk about the Lagos railway line and what have you? So with this government, in its own case, the expectations are that this current president is deft and is quite grounded in the issue of the need for political reform, electoral reform, and making election less expensive, giving people the fair freedom to. So things can be done. And I can give another example. The election that brought Yar'Adua into power was quite controversial.
Right.
But that president started initiating reforms that was shocking. People were like, oh, you know, he was accused of being rigged into office, but it proved a lot of people wrong by trying to put reforms into place. So I think the onus is on this current leadership to surprise quote and unquote naysayers, you know, and like I said to people, even for those of us who did not really campaign for this president, it's important that we pray that they succeed, and whilst we hold them to account, because the lack of success of any president, irrespective of where they come from, irrespective of whether you support them or you did not support them, has direct impact either positively or negatively on everyone. When kidnappers go on the road, they don't ask people they kidnap, are you a Labour Party or PDP or APC? Neither do they ask them if they are Christians or Muslims. Criminals and criminal elements pick people at opportunistic rates, you know, for their own self-interest. So while people should continue to hold the government to account, you know, we need to hope that they succeed, you know, because it's important for the country. When you run a government down, what are you going to inherit when you get there? You know, really, you know, so I am hoping that they would shape up, because time is running against Nigeria. You look at the state of the economy, really, and how difficult things are. Some of it historical, but most of it as a result of, whether you agree with it or not, the reforms this government is putting in place. It's got a very direct impact on the common man on the street. Oil subsidy removal, monetary policies, and what have you. And they need to recognize that people need to start feeling some ease, you know, from those reforms. And they should also see that those in government are paying their own price, you know, for putting the same sacrifice that they expect of the followers. You know, once that is done, I think Nigerians are people who give their public officers a chance. If they don't, you'll be seeing a lot of people being stoned on the street.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's what we're trying to avoid, to let the Nigerian political elite to understand that it is in their best interest to sort out the country. Last question, you know, as our time is running up, Mr. Kayode, how do you describe what happened in Ibadan recently, where you have some folks?
Okay,
You know.
so I've got experience in this. So, you know, I was the founding Secretary General of the Odua People's Congress.
Yes.
And that explains my sympathy to self-determination activists across the country, whether it's Biafra and what have you. But I've always said, and this is based on experience, that violence will never get you anywhere. You know, it will never give you what you want. It will alienate you from the people you claim you want to fight for. You would cause your people destruction, blood, and what have you. And what happened in Ibadan is actually an abuse of what self-determination is about. It's a coup, basically, you know, armed, invading the state assembly, you know, wearing military uniform. So my appeal to everyone is that they need to, irrespective of if you want a republic, you know, you cannot go about it through violent means. And because the result is the Nigerian state, no matter how weak it is, no matter the president, even a president that believes in tearing Nigeria apart, once he swore to become the president of the country and sworn to that constitution, his first duty is to protect and to the territorial integrity of Nigeria. So it's quite unfortunate, and I'm hoping that this government would also have an indirect way of engaging a lot of these elements, to try to understand what they're talking about, what they want. And let me use this opportunity to say the issue of the IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu, which is pending, is an albatross. It was an albatross on the last government. It's still an albatross on this government, and there must be an effort, to find a political solution, across broad, Anyone who raises arms against the state, of course, the state will have the right to fight back within internationally recognized laws. But it was quite unfortunate what happened in Ibadan, and it should be condemned by any peace-loving Nigerian.
Very, 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 very true, and I agree entirely with you that what happened in Ibadan should be condemned. I think it's quite a bit of worry that you will have people behave at that level of, I don't know whether to call it ignorance or clownishness, Yes. But I believe, and I'm sure you also believe, that Nigeria as a nation will prevail. Thank you so much, Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi.
Thank you, Laulu,
for coming to Inside Sources. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, viewers. That is another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, hashtag Nigeria will prevail. We believe it, and that's why we are here. That's why we are pressing the issues, because Nigeria will prevail. I'll see you next week. My name is Laulu Akonde.